Hi and welcome back, and if you remember, I like to do boxes, but unfortunately, after my last video where I was putting the yarn on the cage, I decided to just look up how to make a granny square and figure out what else I can do with all this yarn that I have. So for the first time in my life, I learned how to do some crochet. Then I wanted to, of course, do an Afghan because that seems to be the norm. You know, most people immediately go to the granny square Afghan until I realized that I needed to make 132 of them to get to the size Afghan that I wanted, and I don't want to do 132. I tend to like things that are more instantly gratifying. So this is one that I did with some scrap, and unfortunately I don't have any more of this particular yarn, so I don't know what I'm going to do with that. But meanwhile, I did have this really pretty multicolor purples and greens, and it's just really pretty. So what I did was I made 5 granny squares, and I just slip stitched them together. So it's minimal sewing. You got to sew in a lot of ends, but and if you want this pattern, I may do a video for it later. But for now, I just want to show you that you can do small projects with granny squares and have something. And this is really great for keeping other projects. Like I keep a bunch of granny squares in there, or you know, just whatever. And I actually carry one with me all the time. It fits my phone, it fits my Kindle, it fits my wallet. And there are obviously some holes because it's a granny square, but you could do a solid granny square to avoid that. You could line it with fabric. I'm working on a much larger one right now, which I've lined with fabric, etc., etc. So I don't want to do a tutorial on how to make your granny squares because there's so many of those already on YouTube, and it just seems silly to repeat that. That being said, I did have trouble finding a decent handle. Now, I made this smaller one where I used, I'm keeping my granny squares in there, where I used this cord pattern, and it was just very difficult. It's really hard to get your stitches in there, and there's, you know, some mistakes. It's kind of stretchy, and I didn't want anything stretchy in case I put something heavy in there. Don't want it to stretch too much. You can see there's hardly any stretch in this handle. So what I'm going to show you very quickly today is how to make these handles. And you can make them any size that you want to. I'm not going to go over any of the basics. If you're new to crochet, there are tons of videos. You should probably go check them out. Just going to tell you how I do this, and the rest is up to you. And I'm using a worsted weight with a 5mm hook. And I bought metal hooks, which hurt my hands insanely. They don't warn you when you start crochet that it's going to hurt, but it does, especially if you're like me and you overdo it. So what I did to help with the impacts was I covered this in weather stripping and then covered it with, yes, weather stripping. You know, the kind that comes in when you buy a new air conditioner, you get that piece of weather stripping, and we had extra, so I used it to wrap up my hooks. I did several, actually, of these hooks, and it's really, really very nice. Has lots of give. I also bought this one, which is beautiful, but it's not any better or worse than these. So that's a suggestion that you might consider. I'm using a 5mm hook, and I'm using worsted weight yarn, and I'm going to slip knot, and you're going to notice that I hold my yarn oddly, and this is because I have arthritis in my hands, and I've tried the other ways, and I just can't do it. So what I do is I just do that, and most of my tension is here and here. And for the purposes of demonstration, I'm just going to chain 15 know it may seem a little bit awkward, but it works for me. And you could do this however long or short you want your handle to be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright, that's 15 or 16. What you're going to do is crochet all the way across. You can use single crochets, which I'm going to do, or you could use double crochets. You could do half double crochets, whatever you want it to look like. This is such a flexible design. So, but I'm just going to do single crochets all the way across. I'll meet you right back here. Alright, so here I have my first row of single crochets. Super easy. And then at the end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 2. 1, 2. And I'm not going to turn my work. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just flip kind of my work and work in the same side. Don't bury this tail as you normally would in a project, because you may want to use that for showing up later. And what I'm going to do is go right into this hole. If you can see, I'm sure you can see this hole, and start my single crochets on the other side, the underside of my original chain. You can see, and the holes are all very obvious, and you should be counting as you go. Sometimes I neglect to count, but if you continue to go across, you will see these interesting holes forming, and they should have that nice little bar in the middle. So I'm going to go all the way across, and then I will meet you right back here. Okay, so here's what we should look like. And if you hit every hole, it's so easy to see. You can see that the bars are in the middle, and if you were to miss one of these holes, the bar would be double wide, so you would know where to go back and fix. It would be so simple. Now here I am at the end, and I did put my last stitch in the very last hole. What I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 2 again. And see that stitch going across the top there? I'm just going to slip. I'm just going to slip right into that stitch. And then I'm going to free my yarn. Pull tightly. And there I have my first handle. Okay, so here we have 2, and my first idea, and I did one of these, but I don't have it anymore, so I'll show you very quickly, was to take some ribbon and actually weave it into the holes. I'm so unprepared today. Here we go. I'm just going to use this needle. And you could start anywhere near the end that you want. You could start in the chain space if you want, or you could start in the hole. Like I said, this is super flexible. Really wherever you're going to sew is where you want to start. The only thing with putting the ribbon in here is make sure that it doesn't twist. And if it does twist, try to untwist it. And then if the ribbon goes all the way across, that's going to prevent stretching. This is a little bit smaller. If I was going to do the ribbon, it would be for, I don't know, let's say a size 6mm and up hook and an extremely long handle, which I may do for the bigger bags. For the smaller bags, you really don't have to worry about that too much. What I'm going to do is, let's get rid of the white. I got some red, and I got some yarn vomit. And what I'm just going to do is take my hook, and you could use the same size hook. You could even use a smaller hook. In fact, I will use the smaller hook just for demonstration. This is a 3.75. Now I started with a 5. This is 3.75. And I'm basically just going to pull this yarn through. I'm just going to hold that. It doesn't really matter. It's not that important. And then I'm going to find my working yarn somewhere around here. And I'm just going to slip stitch all the way across. And this is called surface crochet, which I've just learned. This is all very new to me, and I am very awkward because of pain in my hands, but this does work. It may take me a little time to get there, but it's going to look lovely. So I'm going to pause and finish that, and then I'll meet you back here again. Alright, so then once I get to this end, I am going to slip here, and I would free my yarn and be finished with that. And then I could use any one of these tails to sew it to my project, or I'd like to actually use every single tail. I like to weave in and stitch every single tail, but that's because I'm paranoid and I'm always afraid that my stitches suck and they're going to fall apart. And again, the only reason I'm doing this video is because I was hunting the internet for some kind of tutorial on how to make these handles, and everything I came up with was super complicated. I couldn't, they want you to stick your needle in stitches where it doesn't want to go, and so I had to come up with this by myself. So this is what I came up with. And you can see once that is in there, the stretch is a lot minimal. Here, I'm forcing this, and that is as far as it will go, as opposed to this, which stretches for 1.5 miles. Not really, but you get what I'm saying here. You see the difference? Big difference. And this should not stretch over time. Now, if you wanted to do a little bit bigger bag, I do have a heavier bag I could show you. It's, what did I do with it? Oh, here it is. Now, this one I did with, it might be a little bit difficult to see because it's very dark colors, but I did this in black and burgundy, and I did 2 strands together, and it is a 6mm hook with 2 strands of worsted weight, and put them together, and it is really soft, but it's really thick, and is really very, very sturdy. So, I did the handles a little bit different here because I wanted a lot less stretch at this weight. Since it is heavy, it's going to stretch a little bit more. So what I did was, instead of doing the slip stitch, and I'm just going to take that out because I don't have a use for this right now. So take this out. Instead of the slip stitch, what I did was I took my thread. Well, first I measured my thread and made it 3 times the length of my handle, and then I alternated like I would have done with the ribbon if the ribbon had fit into these smaller holes. Just back and forth, back and forth. Etc. And then let's pretend I'm at the end. This video should not be this long for such a small task. But anyway, so then I would just come back up through here. Down through here, and so on and so on. And this really prevents stretching because yarn just doesn't stretch that way. So if you have bigger holes, let's say you use an 8mm hook with the worsted weight, and you have much larger holes, then you would want to do this back and forth a few times. I wish you could see on here. I actually went back and forth 3 times, kind of see. And I will try to take a picture of that in some better lighting and post it into the video. Alright, so again, like I said, I'm not going to be doing a lot of crochet videos. The only thing I'm going to do videos for are things that I want to do that I cannot find tutorials for. So I don't want to deviate from the norm. I still want to go back to my boxes. I'm just currently distracted with the crochet and with Christmas coming. I do want to give a shout out to Sharon Ojala, hopefully I'm pronouncing that properly, and Jada in Stitches, because they have taught me so much with the crochet. They've taught me how to do the granny squares, and I recommend their videos. I'll put links to them in comments or in the description here. Okay, so you get the idea here, and the reason I'm doing this video is because, as I said, there just wasn't anything out there that was quick and easy, and I didn't like doing the I-cord and some of the other things that I found. So I came up with this, and it does work, and it's been working nicely for me for a while. So, so thank you for watching, and if you like my videos, please hit like, and if you'd like to see what I'm up to next, please hit subscribe, and I hope you have a beautiful day.